Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone for coming this evening. We're gonna do a roll call. Stevie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Dawn? Lisa Word O'Brien?
Here.
Lloyd Cunningham?
Here.
Dan DeMarco?
Here.
Patricia DeMarco? Tina Doucet? Nick Reesock? Mark Heckman? Kelly?
Here.
Ken Lasada?
Here.
Ruth Ann Omer? Will Pickering? Mary Ellen Ramage?
Here.
Tim Rogers?
Here.
Kathy Sapp? Danielle Ventresca?
Here.
Sean Alfonso Wells? We have 8.
We have, Max, did you wanna say something?
Sure. With 8, we don't have a quorum. We need 9, so we can skip the action items until later in the meeting. If we do have an additional member call in, we'll have to be conscious if we lose anybody else during the meeting, though, make sure we do have 9 for the 2 action items.
Right.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say on behalf of, the advisory board and everyone, our sympathy to member Ruth Ann Omer, who lost her husband earlier this week. In case anybody didn't know, so, he was also a longtime employee of Gateway Engineering, so I just wanted to share that. We're gonna move along and we're gonna start with the discussion on the, survey results from the working group committees.
So I just wanted to make sure that you know our board chair is.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Dr. Shanna Thornton, we're very happy to see you.
Very pleasant here.
Thank you very much.
I sent out the questionnaire not as early as I wanted to after the other meeting, but I did get it out. And this was a request by the committee to poll everybody and see how they felt about the working groups. So we had 6 responses. And all the people who responded had gone to a working group. So that probably was something. How does this work there? Do I press it? Do I?
No.
The mouse. Okay, so now I have,
Yeah,
that's the wrong person.
that's for sure.
You want to just do. Oh, please turn off on that side. Okay, so you see the bar graph? I said yes. The next. There we go. So the question was, which groups did you participate in? And how many, and so we saw that the only group that wasn't represented for the working group, so that was the Clean Water Assistance Fund. Although I have to say that there was lively involvement in that working group and a lot of discussion. So, scale of 1 to 10, how helpful were the working groups in answering your questions and concern? Are there any changes that should be? And of course, only 2 people gave us a number. And it's all pretty positive there, which you might expect from survey bias. Yeah, right. It is. I thought it was going to be bigger. So if you offered suggestions to staff and other members, how were those suggestions received? We were really interested in finding that out. Not only 2 people responded and they said, well received. Whether or not you attend a working group, did you find the reports to the entire committee helpful? And they are, to a great extent, either helpful or very helpful. Nobody said they weren't helpful at all, but skews toward liking what happened. But there's some changes in this. What topic did you find the most interesting? Plan expansion and regionalization, green infrastructure, stormwater reduction, regionalization and grow, flow reduction. Is that regionalization? Yeah. and flow reduction and expanding growth. So they like when we give them money. So what topic did you find least interesting? Here's where somebody inserted a joke. The post-construction leave behinds, plant expansion and sewers. They didn't like sewers. That was not very interesting.
So it's kind of heartening.
I know, it's it's like conflicted. So here's one of the key questions. Is the working group concept worth continuing in 2024? And no one said continue it in the same way. People said, no, do it in a big meeting.
And how many people participated again?
6,
Okay.
yeah. So we didn't have a quorum on this either.
Yes, okay.
But people are busy. There was a yes, but reformat it. I think it was 2, 2, and 2 on this. People are really over, all over the map on it. So then if we continue, what topics should be included? And I'm hoping you can read that because I can barely read.
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So for engaging the community, less is more.
Yeah,
Fact
fact
sheets
sheets,
to
yeah.
summarize technical reports.
Yeah, I read that we should have simplified fact sheets for the community, but I may be misreading it. Plan expansion, regionalization. And those are the things that are moving very quickly. Grow obviously moves at a pace of every year, there are new projects. And then what other changes would you like to see in this year's advisory committee meetings? One person has teaching schedule conflicts for January through April. Somebody said nothing. And somebody else said not sure. So it could just be a function that I wrote a really crappy survey. But I don't know. I'd like to hear from the members what you take out of that.
Need more responses.
Six responses and they were all anonymous.
Right, but first of all, I think you need more responses. I mean,
Well, I can send it back out again.
we're all busy. Yeah, I mean, we're all busy, but
Yeah.
my gosh, I mean, it didn't take me that long to go through the survey.
Me either.
Actually, it said the average would be 4 minutes to do the survey. And I tried to keep it short and sweet. Do you think I should make any changes to it or just send it?
I think they
again?
were good. I think they were relevant, very relevant questions to the mission of the committee.
Okay, I'll send it out again.
Yeah, I think it would help us determine if we're going to continue the committee meetings, we want to get them scheduled.
Right.
So we kind of need to know, are we going to continue
Right.
or are we changing the subject matter at all, or? I mean, I felt the timing of them was really good in the daytime too.
Yeah.
That was personal.
Okay, I'll send it out again tonight. And we'll get back to you about what the results are. And if you are talking to any of your,
Do you want to push them by going to those who did not respond?
yeah, that's what it'll go to. Yeah.
Say,
Yeah.
please respond.
And I do notice that Mayor Griesbach has joined us. Hey, Nick, so we're gonna go ahead and move back.
Hello.
Unless you had more things to talk about the survey.
Hi, Nick. Thank you. We're gonna go back then to our action items, and the first one would be, we need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the January 2024 meeting. Thank you.
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes. Ken Lasoda.
Thank you. We have a first and a second here. Thank you. All those in favor?
Hi.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. And then you were, I guess the people on the, I don't know.
Received it on.
Okay, you have a copy of the draft 2024 annual report, our report to the Board of Directors, 2 pages. I don't know if anyone, or excuse me, if everyone has read it yet. If they feel they need more time, or, it's just two pages. If we have, enough people that read it and are willing or able and happy to send this on to the board, we could approve this draft tonight. Or if you like, we can hang on to it, give you time to review it. If you want a minute or two to go over it right now, hate to see it wait for another quarter. Yeah, you know. What is, everyone's pleasure?
Max, could we do an email poll on this?
No, and we do need all 9 affirmative votes to move it forward because our bylaws require a majority of all seated members to take any action, even if we have a quorum. So 5 votes tonight wouldn't carry the motion.
Take a moment.
Do you guys want a minute to read it?
Sure.
All right.
It's not that long, geez.
Yeah. Dan's feisty.
Just help trying to move things along here.
But very much appreciated, Dan.
Madam President, if all 9 members today vote in the affirmative, then this would move forward.
Yes, it would.
Okay, then I'd be more than happy to make a motion to move this forward and see if I can get a second and 8 of my colleagues to vote in the affirmative.
Second motion.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I read it.
Anyone? Oops, thank you. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you very much.
When do you present?
Well, the next board meeting's tomorrow night. It's two, that agenda is already set, so it would be the next board meeting. Yeah, in May.
Okay.
All right, thanks everybody for that. And now we're gonna move along to, we have, alarm. Where?
Report on the harbor treatment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's got moved.
Oh, I am looking at the wrong. I'm looking at the old agenda. Sorry about that. All right, we're gonna talk about we're gonna be given a report on the high water treatment plant impacts by staff.
All right, good afternoon, folks. So obviously with all the recent wet weather that we've had in the region, I think we felt it to be perhaps informative for the committee to understand the impacts. You know, and we know what the region's impacts are and have been, and locally you all deal with what your issues are, but there are times when the treatment plant, even though we are fairly resilient to a lot of things, there are impacts to the treatment plant itself when it comes to high river conditions. So I have a brief PowerPoint of some of the things, some of the resources that we use, some of the things that we take into consideration, some of the things that you don't think about necessarily, but when you live along the river, there's a lot of things that potentially impact how we do what we do. So I think when most people think of flooding, they think of a vision like this. You know, certainly for individual municipalities, it runs the gamut. It's this to basement backups. And it's just about everything in between is impacted by some extreme weather. In this situation, I'm talking specifically more of high river conditions than anything else, but obviously between 10th Street bypass, Mont Wharf, bathtub, I mean, all those things that are out there regionally, it does impact the treatment of the the operation of the wastewater treatment plant. So on an everyday basis, these are some of the things that just our staff have a keen eye towards, that have the ability to impact how we do what we do. I mean, obviously, right now, regional weather, rain events for us right now are relatively minor as we go through the clean water plan and expand the plant capacity. There will be a lot more dynamic activities the treatment plant itself has to undergo. We do have real-time data, the collection system, and Mike's 90+ miles that he's out there with his staff monitoring. So we do have real-time feedback, but ultimately, when it comes down to river conditions, we have one source that we rely on. Actually, a lot of the folks, You- All right.
Yeah.
Good.
I think we got tape.
No. Getting close. All right, so here's what we got. River forecasting is, generally the river levels are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. So the walk and dam structure, and that their primary purview is to make sure there's not too much, but yet enough for navigation to occur. And when the extreme river events do ultimately end up occurring, the resource that we utilize, that many utilize, is the National Weather Service. They have real-time information of river levels primarily at the point. And a lot of that is driven by the rain events. And in most cases, you never have to go to this. You never end up having to go to a site like this, and it usually stays flatline. So I mean, what you're looking at is a several day, not only in the past, but also a little bit of projection into the future based upon rain, where the weather service believes the river levels are going to go. Normally, the normal pool level at the point is about 16.5 feet. So when you think of the rivers, I'm not sure if you think of the depth of them, but at the point it's about 16.5 feet. On this site is where we ultimately go when we hear the Mon works can be flooded or anything related to those high river conditions. And this is a very good resource. So you could go to this site and look at historical crests of when the river occurred. These are the highest crests. So again, if you go back to the trend here, it generally is in the 16.5, but you have river crests back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So 72 was Hurricane Agnes. That's almost 36 feet in elevation. Hurricane Ivan was in 2004. I think the highest one I remember ever here was in 2006 or in 1996. And that was a river flooding, ice melt, really warm. That's one of the top 10 crests. And ultimately, this site also, for those that care, I mean, it gives you all the impacts that it has to the region. So it starts with the Mon Wharf and works its way to all the high level points that end up being in the region. So again, as a resource for us, that's typically where we would go. Which one? Yep. Yep. So that's the resource that we ultimately end up going. Now, this is what that same graph looked like back on April 4th/5th of this year. So you can clearly see how the normal pool elevation is normally in the 16.5 and 17-foot range, and it got up as high as 28.37. Bathtub was flooded. There was a whole lot of impact to the region. But again, this is the resource that we utilize to, for us, the impact is less about the treatment of the plant, but the flows that come to the plant. So as you can imagine, with an additional, so you go from 16.5 almost to 28 feet, you're talking 13, 12, 13, 14 additional feet in river elevation, which may not seem like much, but that submerges a lot of things that are out there, including a lot of our outfalls, manholes, structures. While there's no real tangible property there, but there are things that are submerged that typically should not or wouldn't be submerged in normal pool elevations. And what that ultimately causes is a lot of material that would come, that is coming to us. It really doesn't need to. In most cases, it's the river that's coming to us as opposed to us going to the river. So this is our resource. And if you see this on, any of the local media channels, this is where they get it from. So they usually get it from, but again, it's the Army Corps of Engineers' responsibility with the locks and dams, and we call them frequently. So if the river's coming up, we'll call down and they're saying, we're letting as much go as we can. But again, they're managing the downstream and they're managing the upstream as well. So again, this is just simply to show the resource. Without overcomplicating what this is, I think for those that went on tour here at the plant, you all know that all the flow for the plant comes into our wet well. It is in our main pump station, an amazing engineering marvel and just very fascinating to see. But ultimately, it's just big giant tank of wastewater that has all of the regional polluted water coming into it But off on the side, it's influenced by, there's a normal well elevation, there's a river elevation. We have a gate that discharges to the river at a normal pool elevation. But ultimately, it's this wet well and the 90 miles that we own and the 4,000 miles that the region own, they're all trying to get wastewater to the wet well, where during high river conditions, what's coming to the plant is of a different characteristic than it would be during normal dry weather conditions. So this is all the basis of how we control the flow ultimately to the plant. This is our stock photo of all of the things except for the red text that generally represent the people. When rains occur, this gate opens up and there's 9 billion plus gallons that discharge. Now just imagine on the Allegheny River, this being 12, 13 feet higher, you can see how this is submerged. So under that situation, the river now is higher and the river and our system are fighting to push this gate open. One's trying to push back on the gate to close it. We're trying to get water out because we don't have the capacity here. So then you get these gates that are submerged, and those are situations where we find ourselves with the high river conditions. Again, what's coming to us is more muds and silts and things that are very challenging to process. So I'll talk a little bit about the mode of operation that we go into, but normally during wet weather, when we talk about wet weather and the clean water plant, we're talking about us discharging into the river. But during these high river conditions, during flood conditions, the river is actually coming into the treatment plant, and we go through an approved process to protect the plant from having the muds and silts come to us. So in it, this is typically a Kim Kennedy photograph that she would show of the North End project, $100 million project where we built this huge river wall, just an amazing structure that's out there. We have a new chlorine contact tank, an underground tunnel system, and these big circular tanks that are out there. And this is a relatively current construction photo. What you see here is normal river conditions that are out there in a normal pool elevation. So when the river elevations rose, the next slide is some of the things that happened during the flood. So that same photo that you just saw, more aerial, now shows that the river reached into the construction site. I think the graph does a pretty good job of projecting where the river elevation is going to go, but it's not always right. So for this flood event, the river was expected to crest 2 feet below actually where it was. So plans were put in place to protect this site. The river crested higher. Ultimately, the river entered the construction site. What you see back here, which is a little bit hard to see from the room, so that's within the treatment plant from end to end, we have about a 15-foot by 15-foot square tunnel that's underground from end to end. And it's a people chase. There's pipes that are in it. You can walk through it. It's always supposed to be dry. But unfortunately, because of this breach and because of that construction, this is a photo from inside the new tunnel. So it's actually a short video. This photo. So in the middle of the screen is, I'll say, a dam structure that was built in the tunnel under the premise that the river was going to crest at a certain elevation. And when the river kept rising, this is essentially on the other side of the wall would be the river side. And what you see coming over top of the dam structure is all of the river water then entering a tunnel system that wasn't designed for those conditions. So following this flow then through the on the left-hand side of the screen is our water entering into our underground tunnel system in an uncontrolled mode. So the day that this all happened, that Friday morning, as you can imagine, there was an awful lot of activity to try to mitigate the water, not only if the damage that potentially could occur, but also protecting some of the critical infrastructure that we have. So on the right-hand side of the screen is it's the lowest point in the tunnel. So about 8 feet below where this water is coming in, that tunnel flowed uncontrolled through various points of the tunnel to ultimately the location on the right-hand side of the screen. And as you can see, there's a little bit of water that's starting to accumulate on the bottom and within a short amount of time. So you're looking at so this gray structure on the right-hand side, it's a very large 250 horsepower motor, significant in size. There are 3 others on the other side. We were fortunately able to disconnect and remove before the water made its way there, but in very short order, what ended up happening is that's that general same photo of now about 6 feet of water that entered into that cavity. So we were fortunate that the damage was measurably controlled just by our ability to get into the areas in advance, and also the ability for the rivers to actually, because of the core, to drop relatively quickly once they did rise. So the flow continued through various other parts. So I'll run this through a couple times. So that's the water rushing down through other parts of the plant. That flow right there is probably when I walked in the tunnel. That's probably the most anxious I was, because again, you have river water coming in uncontrolled. You don't know if they're going to be able to stop it, control it. And in this circumstance, we were fortunate enough, we were able to put sandbags in some other locations. The other aspects to it to give you some perspective. So the photo on the right is essentially about how high the river got, and it started to back up into the treatment plant discharge itself. So you still had about 8 feet of elevation of the river before it got to the top of the wall and actually would have came over top of the wall. So when I go back to the historical crests that were there, I've heard back for Hurricane Agnes, the water was right to the top of the wall. So that kind of gives you a historical perspective of one, how resilient the plant is under these river conditions, and know that the rivers never flooded into the treatment plant and consumed the plant itself. But measurably, you can see that there was 6, 7, 8 feet left of elevation in the river before it would have made a much more greater impact into the treatment plant itself. And then that photo on the right, I think most of you know that we do have Mike's staff operates a work barge and a boat out on the river, and as the river goes up and down, so does the boat. So staff had to be here overnight to be on the boat to make sure that the ropes were loosened and tightened as the boat went up and down. Well, that's the same night that the barges also broke free. So now you have staff out here in the middle of the night. You now have them in the middle of the night. It's a lot of darkness. And then all of a sudden, here comes a convoy of barges from wherever they came from, took a couple marinas out just upriver from us.
Here comes another one.
So you see a barge right
We're gonna have a
here
blockage.
stuck against our structure. It actually impacted this mooring cell and pushed it
There was
off
10
to the side.
plus.
Fortunately, these mooring cells that are here are there to protect the boat. So this blue step structure is downriver, and these mooring cells are really there to protect the boat. So had these mooring cells not been there, the boat that we just saw in the other photo likely would have been significantly damaged. So the biggest thing for us truly ends up being the muds and the silts. So what we got approved by the regulatory agencies during those high river conditions, we actually reduced the flow of plant, or reduce the flow through the treatment plant. As the river goes up, we back the flow off, albeit causing overflows to occur in excess of what they normally would. But at the end of the day, the protection of the plant, because as we found out in the past, when the muds and silts get in the tanks and settle out at the bottom, it's days, if not weeks, for us to recover, to get that mud. We've all been part of some basement cleanup. While it's still wet and moving is the easiest to clean it, but once it's in there and sets up, the cleanup process, and that's no different from the wastewater treatment process. So we protect the plant by, during these high flow conditions where we don't have enough capacity to treat not even close to what's coming in here, we close the flow off to the plant, albeit causing more overflows to occur. But at the end, when the river flooding is over, we don't have dozens of tanks full of mud. Then we have to dewater, then we have to haul off site. It won't burn, and it allows the plant to recover much quicker. So at a high level, that's when you hear the lawn work being flooded, we're cutting the flow to the plant at that point in time. 2018, it might have happened 36 times for as rainy as it was. We did it twice this year so far because of a January event and because of this event right here. It's one of those odd things that happens. It's outside of the normal course of action for us, but we are impacted by river conditions. Fortunately, like I said, the plant is very resilient with regard to the operation of flooding and the treatment plant protection. That's kind of the highlights of what river high levels do to the wastewater treatment.
Is there, what's critical elevation on the river? Is there a point where you're out?
So 19, so again, if the normal pool was 16.5, 19 is usually our trigger. We got our ears up. We will start to cut the flow between 19 to about 24. And then at 24, we have just a base amount of flow going through the plant just to keep things moving, but we're really not treating anywhere near capacity. And it's not very often that you go up to the 24, 25 elevation. I mean, it was 2 times this year so far. I don't think it happened at all in 22. It might have happened once in 21. So it's not that often where you get that high, but it's almost always a spring thing, except for Hurricane Ivan. Ivan was in the fall, and that was completely different than a snow melt or a spring event.
When construction is done, is the pipe tunnel, the tunnel still in peril?
So the pipe tunnel itself is actually no longer in peril right now. So there's sheeting that was put up along the wall because of the construction of where that large excavation was. So at the moment that's sealed off. That was a one-off of an unanticipated, and we would not expect any of that to occur going forward. That tunnel was probably in greater peril from inside issues of pipe damage or breaks inside the plant than it is from river conditions itself.
I'm sure it was an exciting day.
It was, yeah. So it was different. A Good Friday will be. Any other questions, Steve?
One other question.
Yep.
If you see a storm coming,
Mhm.
and I don't know anything about treatment.
Yep.
Can you accelerate treatment to lower, to get rid of the effluent ahead of time? When we see it, like in the water business, when we see a storm coming, we load the tanks. Because we're
Okay.
never gonna lose power.
For sure.
And everybody's gonna be cleaning their basements.
Yeah.
So you anticipate the storm.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys can do to anticipate the storm?
No, so the treatment process, at least right now, the treatment process is fairly unimpacted by going from whatever our normal average day flow is to 250 million gallons per day. There really isn't, there's not anything different that we do. You know, usually when the flows increase, it's a more dilute stream to begin with. So it's not as though you have to put additional process trains online. When we get to 480 and beyond that, then there will be, right now, there will be a lot of empty tanks that will be out there that we will be potentially filling in advance for the hydraulic load that's going to be coming, however measurable it is. And you never know if the rain's gonna end up being a significant one, or if it's just a flash storm and you have some, half hour, 30-minute event. So that's a lot of things that we've heard anecdotally from a lot of other plants that went from a normal base flow to these excessively high flows during wet weather events. And so one, there's nothing that we really need to do to the treatment plant to be able to anticipate the rain. We're pretty resilient with the power side of things, so we don't anticipate the power. We certainly always have enough chemicals on site to be able to treat whatever volume of flow would be coming through here. The tunnel, it will be its own beast. It will be try to get it emptied as fast as you can, because you don't know when that next event is going to end up being there. And those are I think the more exciting things that will challenge us going.
So how long does it take you to recover? Like, I always gauge, like, when the sewers were coming off, right?
Yeah.
So you asked, how long are we gonna be back in pipe is what I asked my guys.
Yeah.
How long does that take for you?
So that really varies. So I think, I would say from my perspective, our recovery has continued to get better year after year. And I think that's a testament to our own infrastructure improvements, as well as the municipal improvements of pipelining and inspections and all those other things that are out there, where you don't languish in these wet weather surcharge conditions for weeks at a time. And I could go back to when I started in the early 90s, we would be in some type of overflow condition for weeks because of how wet the system was. And you could go from probably the end of January through the beginning of March, and there was more flow than we knew what to do with. with the exception of some of the times when the groundwater is pretty high in the spring, I mean, we're recovered a couple days. River flooding, it's a little bit different because there's an awful lot of water that still kind of drains to those low points, but tightening up the collection system, certainly in my perspective, has gone a long way in helping the region recover from those wet weather events and get us back to under a CSO type of condition.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Very good. Does anybody online have any questions? That was really interesting.
Somebody has something in the chat.
Oh, there's something in the chat. Thank you. I did not, my eyesight is not, I cannot read that.
No, I have to jump off for another
Can
meeting.
somebody closer to the screen read that for us, please? Mother John, okay, thank you. Thank you for that. That was very interesting. That very, National Weather Service, I have those in it now. Everybody has like that link on their phone in the USGS, so, you know, we're familiar with that. That was a very good report.
And we have Mary Ellen, she calls us.
Yeah.
You're flying me.
Or sometimes my upstream, and I have to say, the predecessors in both Hampton and Shaler were very kind to give me heads up when things are coming this time, so you and Chris did a great job.
I told my successor, be afraid, be very afraid.
I think Chris Walker told Brian that as well. All right, so now we're moving on to the A-Law revisit. And is that who is handling that?
Now, you're actually, those of you who couldn't make it to A-Law are in for a treat because you're gonna get to see the presentations that we made. If you were there already, try not to snore.
It was your best presentation.
Thank you.
Impressively.
I did have one person say, I've been coming for 4 years. This is the first time I understood what you were saying.
Good afternoon. I got some complaints that I was too not loud enough. So let me know if I'm like destroying your internet. Please, can I have your attention? We promised to be short, sweet, maybe even entertaining. We have decided to make a change up this year because we know so many of you have been coming for the past few years that you can probably do the basic education yourself and the history. So that's all in your swag bag. If you're new, that's all in your swag bag. And we'll be doing questions at the end. So I wanted to welcome all of you. You may wonder why I call you, and we call you the Clean Water Heroes. We can't do this without you. It's a shared responsibility and shared work. We have programs to help you as much as possible. And we're going to be giving you just the updates. But before we start, I want to make sure you know we've got some dignitaries in the office and in the audience, and probably some people who think they're dignitaries. But we have County Controller Corey O'Connor. Who is sitting in the hall. Oh, there he is. And Corey used to be the ALCOSAN board chair. We also have Representative Emily Kincaid, who is currently on our board of directors. And we have the new county treasurer, Erica Bruslers. Erica, where are you? There you are. Hey. Okay, so they'll be around to answer questions when we're done. And we will do all the questions at the end of these quick presentations, if that's okay. So with that, the fabulous, the wonderful, the pleasant, Julia Spiker will do the quick trip through regionalization.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean. So as Jean mentioned, thank you all for coming. Thank you for everything you've done as part of our regionalization program and the clean water program in general. Regionalization has successfully achieved the transfer of our first 25 miles of sewers from municipal ownership, yes, to ALCOSAN. And I think even more exciting than that is we have about another 130 miles in the queue. And that means that the municipalities have completed the resolution. They've authorized participation in the program, and we're just finishing up the DEP permit transfer applications and those final signatures. So within the next year and a half, 2 years, we should achieve at least 150 miles transferred from the municipalities to ALCOSAN, which is awesome. And I know that's a heavy lift on your end. So if there's anything we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. So transfer is kind of just the beginning steps. Why are we doing this program, and what is the purpose of going through this long process to get us to this point? And that is so we can build more efficient and effective projects in the region. So we want to be able to take the jurisdictional boundaries that water really doesn't care about and come up with a project that's more holistic in nature and will better serve our shared ratepayers. ALCOSAN, all we do 24/7, 365 is convey and treat wastewater flow. When issues come up, like I know this past week, you've all been struggling with the flooding that we've been experiencing, and we have too. We have crews on staff, and we have the ability to go out and address those issues as they arise. And finally, it's to make those investments back into the municipalities. So once the lines are transferred, we immediately begin doing an assessment of those lines, which we've completed. So the first batch of sewers that came over, we went out, we televised, we cleaned with some help from people in this room. And that way we can set up a baseline for where are we gonna invest in the right places, in the right time, and what's that gonna cost. So that's what regionalization has achieved in the past year, and thank you for your support throughout the program. It's very, very much appreciated. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff Ardross, who's going to talk about our plan expansion.
Thanks, Julia. For the plan expansion update today, we are going to take a drone aerial viewpoint brief tour of the plan expansion for our update. So we're going to start from the south, just like you would if you were driving into the plant. So we are approaching our first project. Sorry about that. Right in the middle of the screen, our East Headworks project. A reminder of what the plant expansion goal is. We are more than doubling the plant's capacity from 250 million gallons per day to 600 million gallons per day by the end of 2029. And to date, we have spent approximately $230 million. Those are real dollars that have been spent towards the clean water plan goal of reducing overflows into our rivers. So what we are seeing here is a time lapse of our East Headworks site. It's been going on for about 3 years. So this is 3 years of construction in about 30 seconds. What you're seeing, the concrete being poured, that was about a year and a half ago. Eventually you're gonna see a large concrete pour that becomes the floor of this building. What this building is it's an expansion of our preliminary treatment at the plant. In the background is our West Headworks that can treat 250 million gallons. And then this will treat about 360 million gallons, which will bring us to that 600 total. So you can see right now the facade, we are really close to wrapping up this construction, and this building will actually be put in operation later this year, a big milestone for the plant expansion. So on the tour, we're going to continue going north above our primary tanks and our aeration tanks. We are going to cross over the McKees Rocks Bridge towards our circular secondary clarifiers. These are each about 140 feet in diameter. We have 16 total. We're building 2 more in our north end plant expansion project, which is what we're looking at right now from a different viewpoint. So what does the north end project look like? It's this river wall. We built that in 2021. That was a huge milestone for the plant. That was really just so we could build this project. So what you're seeing in the middle of your screen, that's a new disinfection tank, which will handle our daily disinfection treatment. And on the left is our chemical building, but really the spotlight is that line off the top of the disinfection tank. That is a secondary effluent conduit, which is what we are now looking at a time lapse of. So this time lapse, it's about the last year of construction. You slowly see this secondary effluent conduit extension being built from south to north to that disinfection tank way, way in the back. And then eventually you see this additional pipe gallery being built on top of that. What this is a pipe gallery that extends basically from the north end of the ALCOSAN plant to the south end. So you can pop in at one area of the plant and pop out at another area, but it's also where we hide these pipes that you're seeing right now. Otherwise, ALCOSAN's surface would look like pipes all over the place. So you could actually make the argument that if you're standing at ALCOSAN, you're on the second floor of ALCOSAN. It's just like Disney World. That's how the characters pop in and out in different areas of the plant. So what we are entering here, we're in the existing pipe gallery right now, but we're entering that new one. So you're not seeing those pipes anymore. We are going to be installing those pipes in the next few weeks. So by the end of the summer, really this whole system is going to be active and live, but it's empty right now. So it's a great time to fly a drone through it like we're doing here. And eventually you're going to see a friendly contractor pop out right there. We're going to chase him down the rest of the way as we're approaching that northern wall. That northern wall, I think he gives us a wave when we go by him. There he is, yeah. And that's the disinfection tank. So we've now reached the end. We're going to turn right. That's the basement of our new chemical building. So our pipe gallery is actually going to extend into the chemical building basement. Hasn't been completed yet. So that's it for today. Again, just remind ourselves what the goal of the plant expansion is. We're expanding, more than doubling our treatment plant capacity from 250 million gallons per day to 600 million gallons per day by the end of 2029. So that'll wrap up our plant expansion tour today, and I'm going to hand it over to Tim Prevost, the Master of Grow.
Master of Grow. Okay. Well, wanted to say thank you to the municipalities that have shown up here today for this luncheon. I want to share with you some updates on the GROW program. We are currently in our 9th cycle. Honestly, I didn't believe that we would get 9 cycles in, but we're 9 cycles. So far, in the previous 8 cycles, ALCOSAN has offered over $61 million in awards to the municipalities, and the municipalities have also contributed for these projects a similar amount, roughly about $60 million. So it's about half and half. And we just recently finished our reviewing one of the final reports, and in that final report, that put us over 1 billion gallons of stormwater removed from the regional collection system. It's not us, it's you guys. So the hand goes out to all of you. So $61 million over 8 cycles. That was 160 projects. The project that I just mentioned was our 92nd project that the municipalities implemented, received their funding, wrote a final report, did the monitoring, and this is a very good program for not just our region, but I believe nationally, as an example of how an entity, a wastewater treatment plant, or any kind of utility can work with their customers to get projects moving. These projects have been effective, over 1 billion gallons of stormwater removed, and roughly about a little over 200 million gallons have been identified as being removed in overflows. So we're doing a really good job together. This is not done in a vacuum. It's not done by me, by myself, and it takes a whole team. Your engineers, your managers, sometimes council people are ringing me up and saying we have ideas. The collaboration that we have had over the past several years, more recent than in the past, but recently our collaboration has been amazing. We're pushing to get ideas from the municipalities. We're sharing ideas with you. If you need help, we do what we can to provide resources back to you, the municipalities, so that these projects can, basically take root. And we try to identify the projects that I know we can fund. Sometimes it's not the funding that, everybody's hoping for, a full 85%. But as my friend Dave Montz once said, if somebody has a jacket for sale and you say that you can get 25% off of that jacket, are you not going to buy the jacket? I think you're probably going to buy the jacket. And Dave, don't hurt me if I said that wrong. But the collaboration really took hold in this cycle 9. Because in cycle 9, we ended up with over 30 projects identified, that you guys identified, brought to our attention. And this cohort, most of the projects I identified on these maps, these are all the individual projects. There might be 1 or 2 that aren't up there because I ran out of room. but this is probably the strongest cohort of projects that I've seen in the entire cycles of Grow. I just want to say thank you to all of you, because you guys are starting to identify things that I know we can fund, projects that are going to work for you, that are going to help you with your regulatory requirements. And, once we take a look at these, start figuring out how we can further help you. And then this is not it. As the sign says, and please don't groan, room to grow. I had to throw a bad pun in there. I'm sure Gene didn't like it, but I had to. But I just wanted to say to all of you, thank you for making this program a success. It's not ALCOSAN, it is everybody working together. So thank you. I'm going to turn this over now to Sean McWilliams, who's going to talk about the tunnel program. And Sean is the program manager extraordinaire of the tunnels.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So the tunnel program is the fourth pillar in the clean water program, as Jeff discussed. In 2029, when we get the plant capacity up to that 600 million MGD, the tunnels will be what delivers that additional flow. So overall, the tunnel program will be the first phase completed in 2036 with roughly 16.5 miles of pipe. Water quality is really what this program is all about. It's how the effectiveness of the program will be measured, and it's really about the largest resource that our region has, and that's the three rivers. So we know, if you've lived in Pittsburgh for a long time, people can tell you that we've gone through different phases of what the rivers look like, and now people see the vibrance and the opportunities there. But we still have a problem, because in a typical year, roughly 9 billion gallons of combined sewage and stormwater overflow into the rivers and streams. At the end of the program, we will be down to roughly 2 billion. So that's a 7 billion gallon volume decrease in the amount of sewage that will be going into the rivers. And we talk about benefits. Back in 2021, the Allegheny Conference did a study on the effects of the construction and estimate that roughly 14,000 jobs would be supported through this effort, directly and indirectly. And in addition to that, you can think about all the businesses that will have opportunities, all the ancillary things that go into it for the region. But there's also the benefit of the rivers, use of the rivers, recreation. The boating, the fishing community, the entertainment value, things that people want to do as a draw for this region. As you can see here, right now we have to deal with the CSO flags. If you're familiar with the rivers, you may see those. What we're working to do is reduce the use of those in the future and eliminate the overflows so that won't be a common occurrence. When we talk about community, like Gene said, really that's where you all come into play as the clean water heroes. We couldn't do this program without you. We've met with many of you in this room for quite a while now, working through the Act 537 planning. Some of you, we have very near meetings coming up to talk about updates and community activity in your communities. We've been meeting with stakeholders so that we know what the plans are in the future, things that we could take into account, concerns for when we go to construction. And we've even looked at certain communities have opportunities for redevelopment. We've taken that into account. So we've moved up some design opportunities where we can make impacts there to front load designs and potentially be less impactful overall to the future plans for communities. So that's really something that's important to us, so that as we go into construction, we're hearing the voice of the communities, and we know that they understand the overall benefits and what to expect. Thanks to our ORT, the Ohio River Tunnel final designer, Mott McDonald, I'll give you a little overview of the project. As you can see here, the current alignment. The Ohio River Tunnel is our first tunnel project that's going to be completed. We're nearing 90% design, so we'll be going out the bid later this year, towards the end of the year, and starting construction in 2025. You can see this alignment runs along the north side and part of the north shore there. The shaft that's on the east will be our launch shaft, AS1. So this is about 4.5 miles of tunnel, 18 foot in diameter, and it's 150 feet below ground in rock. So this will be constructed largely, this main alignment with the tunnel boring machine. If you remember when the North Shore connector was built in the city of Pittsburgh, similar construction. It'll be launched from that one shaft and it'll progress down along the North Shore here, picking up the points shown there, and then hugging the shore along the way until we get down towards the plant. There's really no points to pick up until we get down to the old prison site here by our plant, and then we have the Chartiers Creek crossing, which is a 14-foot diameter tunnel, and we also have Sawmill Run crossing. So now we go underground. So this is what you could see, a rendering of 150 feet below ground. When we put the tunnel in, this is how it'll look in conceptual, so you get an idea. The pickup points along the way, the drop shafts. And you can see we're coming up on our existing deep tunnel interceptor, which many people may not know that our existing interceptor is about 100 feet deep, installed in the 50s in rock. So we'll be very near that structure. And as we progress down towards the plant, towards the 27 shaft, you'll be able to see a rendering of what some of the surface, what we call near surface construction, will look like. From this point is where the flows will progress into the plant to our wet weather pump station, which is part of the plant expansion work. You can see we have to do some shoreline reinforcing of a river wall there. There'll be some new outfall structures. This is how the flow will actually get from the surface structures down to the tunnel. This is called a baffle drop arrangement. So again, this is the alignment for the Ohio River Tunnel. The two that follow after that will be the Allegheny River Tunnel and the Monongahela River Tunnel. And we'll be completing those with our goal of hitting that by 2036. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Gene Clark. And thank you all for coming and your attentiveness today.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to follow that. I made a few remarks at the end of there about our clean water assistance fund and what changes we are making to it. We did an analysis of where our customers were coming from, how they were reaching our fund, and found some issues within the system that we use with Dollar Energy. And so we met with them, and we have put a number of enhancements in place. They're going to be providing our recipients with an online ability to apply. So we'll be able to be going out into the field, and that's the other thing, is the government affairs staff, particularly Stevie and Sharon back there, are going to be going out to the communities to help people understand about the program and get them to sign up. They're going to communicate through their community-based organizations, meeting up with the hardship programs for other utilities. And so we'll be able to take the same information that the applicant used for the other utility and move them into ours if they're one of our ratepayers. We've been working very closely with Duquesne Light and now with People's Gas. PWSA promote our program in their newsletter. And we are reaching out into the community to find community champions in each community to help us reach out. We're also enhancing technology so that Dollar Energy Fund and ALCOSAN can work more closely together to confirm customer status and through whatever an API is. I'm not a computer person, but our IT people, and we hope to have that done very soon. We looked at the marketing materials that we have been using, and clearly they were not doing the job. So we looked at a lot of research about how people now communicate, how they learn, and how to get their attention. The latest data is really stark about people generally have a 5-second attention span in order to decide whether they're going to pay attention to something. Some of them had it before the internet. But it seems to be to a great extent, this is the impact of this communications we get nonstop and that we reply to. 98% of people who send an article to you through social media haven't read the article. Yeah, they
You read the
they
headline?
read the headline. So everybody's scanning, nobody's paying attention, and we know particularly people are paying attention to facts, since the internet runs on opinion.
Are you doing an add-on to the bill, like Light Heat Pass, where it's $1 charge every month?
No,
No, okay.
yeah,
So have you calculated an anticipated number? And what does that impact the rate? How much of the rate is being used to cover?
I mean, I haven't calculated that because basically I'm concentrating on
Right, okay.
getting the program out
Yeah.
in the community. So we're making the, based on a big study that Duquesne Light did, they found that we were all being a little too overly informative in telling people what was available, and they would get paralyzed and not know what to apply for. And so, we have, our motto now is signing up or getting help is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, see if you're an ALCOSAN customer, and we're going to be having people out in the field, having people be able to use the follow the flush to determine if they're one of our ratepayers. Number 2, apply. We'll have the application electronically when we're in the field, as will all of our Dollar Energy's community groups. And number 3 is back it up with your bills. But you can do 1, 2, 3, and then you get to 45. That's how you will get $45 a quarter off of your sewage bill.
So there's no current program in place?
There is, but it was designed like in 2016 when we were making a lot of assumptions that turned out, like we assumed that our municipal customers would be able to help us get the ratepayer to apply. All the municipality people are just so overwhelmed. We can't really rely on that. They'll take our material, et cetera, but we felt like it was more important for us to be out there. And so we're trying to make it really concrete. We're also starting in low-income communities. And so we're looking at, we're going to be developing a campaign with paid media, as well as those of us out in the field. And it's going to run from we're still working on all of this, but the paid media will run from about the middle of June to the beginning of August. It'll be targeted for low-income communities. We're going to do traditional paid media like bus shelters, outdoor posters, and you can target by environmental justice communities that way. We're going to be doing printed postcards, and we have the ability to not only target within our service territory, but also to to use more data that we can get and find out who the homeowners are, because our program is for homeowners. And we're going to be digital. We're going to be on Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. And you can really target that based on a whole lot of things. The target is so intense now among all social media, including things like your cable company. They know what you're watching. That's why you get the commercials that you do. And we're gonna be doing digital displays wherever we can. We're gonna be following it into our summer, what do we call that?
Summer sweepstakes.
Summer sweepstakes, yeah. So that one of the sweepstakes to win a prize, you'll have to take a look at all of this stuff and learn about it. We're gonna, again, bus shelters, direct mail, email. We have the ability to, not only do we own a number of email addresses because people have given us their email addresses for us to communicate with them, but we can also gain others. So we're going to start with our own ALCOSAN database. And then, of course, we're also going to be emailing elected officials, getting them on board, and other people within the community as we find those community champions. So we're working on what the postcards are gonna look like, what the ads are gonna like, we'll have billboards. None of this has agreed, we're still playing around with a number of things, but we have a number of creative concepts. And it's really very simple. Need help, it's here. So that people don't have to get into a lot of details, but they'll be able to go to their local church, etc. We'll be also working with a lot of the churches in these communities, and outside bus signs, inside bus signs. We can do social posts and again, we're cooperating and working with all of the other public utilities that do this, so that we'll be able to double down with one another.
Do you find that, and I know this was an issue, but we were able to work it out with, our water authority. But in any of its analysis, it's usually people who are not homeowners. Rental, sometimes are the lower income, and that this is not available to that.
Right, and that was a decision that we made because we didn't want to be paying landlords and hoping they were going to be passing that on. It was one because we want to actually help people, but also we have to exist. We can't.
I'm thinking, because I thought, and this has maybe been worked out everywhere.
Right.
Going through the homeowner, they had to put their income down, and they immediately did not qualify. So, who owned it and who lived there, their income levels were different. I know Hampton Shade of Water has a program where I'm not on the board, but Mr. Rogers here is, they let the owner sign off.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be analyzing who we're reaching and how we can improve that reach. And of course, we're going to be considering, what would be the impact of doing that. There have been some changes in the law that may make it easier. And I'm talking to PWSA about that because they already have that.
Have the other utilities been able to give you an anticipated estimated number of people who are going to qualify?
They have their own numbers. In some cases, it's easy. In some cases, it's not so easy.
I just wonder how you budget.
Wow.
This is the
Budget
part of the wall
in
for a while.
2016.
Participation has fallen off. So
Right.
we're gonna see where
And one of the reasons it fell off is people were not reapplying. And so we're gonna be much more, and I've got Dollar Energy to agree that they're really gonna be much more assertive with people, getting them to understand that you need to apply. Some of this is, we went through COVID and everybody's kind of finances changed, point of view changed. And so we really do have to make this big splash so that people know that it's there. And that we can help. And then the other thing, of course, is most people don't know they pay an ALCOSAN bill. Right, so that's one of the reasons we're gonna be out and about, making everybody follow the flush and doing everything we can so that people understand, even though they don't mail a check to ALCOSAN, they pay an ALCOSAN bill. Because what we're trying to avoid is having people apply and have to get turned down because they're not an ALCOSAN customer. And at the same time, I'm working, on the federal and state level to get some dedicated funding for low income drinking water and clean water ratepayers. The other utilities have that. If they're regulated by the PUC, it's a requirement of the PUC. And there are federal and state money for LIHEAP, LIRE. And so far, what they've done for water is only help in situations where a person is in arrears. And we don't have any arrearages. So we were not, I worked with all the municipalities, to make sure that they were getting their reimbursements, but it's, we don't qualify for that, so I spend a lot of time talking to people.
I like hearing, I think I heard you'll have people that'll go out, like, I'm thinking like community day, something like that,
Yeah,
I'd love to have someone go to our food bank.
Yes, absolutely.
Go.
Tell us when they are. Tell
We'll
Karen.
help you fill that out.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna be out and about.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see what we have next. Any new business?
I just want to bring one thing up. I don't know if you,
Really?
any of you caught this yet?
Sorry.
Very lean today. I think it was the Friends of the River. I'm not so sure, but there was a show on WQED that talked about pollution in the rivers. They were very complimentary of ALCOSAN. But the guy on the did videos riding a boat, he's on the Ohio River, he says, it's the most polluted river in the nation. And I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I find it hard.
I mean, my God, if anybody's been to Philadelphia, there's dead bodies going down out. I just think, you may want to catch this, with WQED, but they were very complimentary of you guys at the drive by and.
Maybe he meant it's the most junk that goes in that gets cleaned out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how that could possibly.
I didn't quite catch the thing, but.
It doesn't sound like they're.
Yeah, that can't.
Well, here's just my experience. When I was working at Penn Future, working on getting rid of all sources of pollution, one of the factoids that people kept using was that Pennsylvania had more streams than any state but Alaska.
That was on that show too.
And then I tracked it down, and it turned out somebody had, because it didn't make sense to me. The more I thought about it, Texas, California, et cetera. And it in fact isn't true, but somebody just like made it up at DEP one day, as far as I could tell, and everybody took it.
On WQED.
Yeah.
Who?
That was on,
It could have come
that very
from.
statement was on that show too.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where it came from, but it was just like trying to track that stuff down. It's important, but it's difficult. But thank you for that. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I think we can look at, you see eagles here now. I figure that all the time. Yeah, the birds that are back here now that have been gone for 100 years. Okay, let's see, do we have any public comment?
No, we do now.
Okay. With anything else before I ask for a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time, which is July 31st.